Authorities found 12-year-old Jakari Robinson dead in his home last October, his body partially decomposing.
Milwaukee's North 39th Street was a place where routine rarely broke.
Decomposing body was found in a Milwaukee home this week.
And there are some inconsistencies between the two agencies investigating this case.
Neighbors knew each other. Lawns stayed tidy. Morning coffee was served on porches. People waved as they passed. But by the fall of 2023, something shifted at one house. A growing silence started to feel louder with each passing day.
On Tuesday night, police found Jakari's malnourished body in a home near 39th and Elmhurst.
The lights stayed off. The windows stayed shut. Mail stacked up outside like a forgotten pile. Trash bags leaned against the house, some splitting from the weight of neglect. People noticed. They nodded. But no one asked questions. That was until Jay Robinson arrived.
The medical examiner's office was unable to positively identify the body right away because it was so badly decomposed.
Jakari's older brother hadn't been home for months. But that October morning, when he stepped inside, everything changed. The smell hit first, a thick wall of rot and decay. Trash was stacked waist-high. Mold spread along every wall. Buckets of human waste sat where toilets once worked. In the living room, under a filthy, decomposing blanket, lay his little brother, 12-year-old Jakari Robinson.
The ME nor police have shared a timeline about how or when Jakari died or whether someone else was living in the home at the time.
Emaciated, cold, decomposing, his body weighed just 54 pounds. The official criminal complaint would later reveal that Jakari had likely died on or before October 3, 2023. His body was only discovered a full week later, on October 10th.
His own son, 12-year-old Jakari Robinson, was found dead last October inside a Milwaukee home near 39th and Elmhurst.
That entire week, his small frame sat alone in that house, unnoticed, undiscovered. Neighbors recalled seeing Jakari's father, Romuan Moye, acting strangely in the days leading up to the discovery. One neighbor reported, "He seemed off, told me he didn't have long to live, said he had cancer." When I asked about Jakari, he just said, "The boy's bad, wouldn't let anyone see him."
Questions continue to swirl around the investigation into the death of a 12-year-old boy.
When police arrived, what they found was a scene straight from a horror film. Rotten food, blackened counters, overflowing waste buckets, insects everywhere, and one small body, broken and alone. The medical examiner described it as catastrophic chronic starvation. Jakari was severely malnourished and in moderate decomposition. But the starvation wasn't the only horror his body revealed.
The medical examiner's office describing his condition as malnourished and decomposing.
Multiple fractures were found, a large, irregular calloused fracture on his right leg, a fractured left leg, and 2 broken ribs in different stages of healing. These injuries told a longer story, of untreated abuse stretching back months, maybe years. One neighbor later admitted seeing Jakari walking to the corner store around his birthday in August. He looked like a ghost, hollow eyes, baggy clothes. I asked if he was okay. He whispered, "No." But I didn't say anything. That discovery didn't just break Jay's world, it shattered an entire neighborhood's illusion of safety.
I woke up and was just really thinking in my thoughts like, dang, my little brother really gone.
And it raised one devastating question. How could so many people notice and still do nothing? The more investigators uncovered, the clearer it became. Every system that should have protected Jakari quietly failed him. Wisconsin's homeschooling law, known as PI 1206, requires only that parents file a notice of intent each year. There's no required curriculum oversight, no home inspections, no academic progress reports, no wellness checks.
The Milwaukee Police Department not investigating this case, Jakari Robinson's death, as a homicide, but the medical examiner's office says it is being investigated as a homicide.
Once Jakari was pulled from school, no one checked on his education or his safety again. Experts testified that roughly 20% of child abuse cases are first identified by teachers, the very people trained to notice bruises, dramatic weight changes, or troubling behavior. But with no teachers watching, Jakari disappeared behind closed doors. Over the years, multiple calls had been made to Child Protective Services. Family members, neighbors, and even teachers raised concerns about unsanitary living conditions and emotional neglect.
There was confusion for a second day as the family of Jakari Robinson and his neighbors wait for answers.
But each time, investigators closed the cases, citing conflicting statements or insufficient evidence. One of Jakari's former teachers testified. He was bright, curious, but something always felt off. I filed a concern when I heard he was being homeschooled. After that, I never saw him again. Neighbors watched Jakari's small frame shrink further, hood pulled low, arms covered, face sunken.
Fun. He loved WWE for sure. He was always like one of them little brothers.
When asked how he was doing, he often whispered, "I'm fine." But his voice trembled. By the time autumn arrived, even those brief glimpses vanished. Jakari stopped leaving the house entirely. Behind those closed doors, months of silent starvation unfolded, while the very systems designed to protect him failed to notice he was even missing. With Jakari's body discovered and his father missing, a manhunt began almost immediately. Romwan Moye, 45 years old,
Milwaukee father sentenced today to more than 4 decades in prison for the death of his 12-year-old son.
disappeared just days after the gruesome discovery. Authorities issued a warrant within 5 days. His face appeared across local news broadcasts. His mugshot rotated continuously on Wisconsin's most wanted bulletins. Court TV coverage labeled him armed and dangerous, facing charges that carried a potential maximum of 82 years. Leads poured in from across Wisconsin and into Illinois. Sightings near train stations. Reports of him hiding in abandoned buildings. But every lead unraveled. J. Robinson pleaded during the search. He ran from his own child's death. That's not a father. That's a monster.
I don't know how someone does this to a stranger or someone they hate, but how do you do it to your child?
For nearly 4 months, Moye evaded capture. But in February 2024, federal marshals and bail enforcement finally tracked him down across state lines in Illinois, near Jackson and Kilburn. An anonymous tip led them to the hideout. His arrest offered temporary relief, but it marked only the beginning of a far more chilling case that prosecutors were still piecing together. As detectives combed through the evidence, what they found made it clear. This wasn't just neglect. It was premeditated torture. Forensic teams recovered search history from Moye's devices that revealed chilling intent. How long before starvation leads to death?
Wearing an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs, 45-year-old Ramon Moye sat in a Milwaukee County courtroom Thursday to learn his fate.
Legal definitions of child neglect. Wisconsin homeschool laws. These weren't desperate, impulsive searches. These were calculated inquiries, gathering knowledge on how far he could push the limits before someone might intervene. Inside the home, investigators documented deplorable living conditions. Buckets of human waste lined every hallway. Mold climbed the walls unchecked. The kitchen was completely unusable. The plumbing system hadn't worked for months. Bugs infested nearly every surface, perhaps most disturbing. Home surveillance footage captured long stretches where Jakari lay on the living room floor, motionless, frail.
I said, you gotta be kidding me, when all you had to do was bring me my son.
And completely isolated. There were no toys, no comfort, just silence. The medical examiner testified that Jakari's extensive injuries reflected long-term abuse. Multiple healing fractures across both arms. A severely calloused right leg fracture. 2 ribs broken at different times. Bone density indicating prolonged starvation.
To see that emaciated body and to hear of the number of fractures and broken ribs and lack of nourishment.
Deputy District Attorney Matthew Torbinson described the evidence bluntly. He was confined, slowly tortured, and then killed. Judge Laura Crivello echoed that horror. In my 30 years, this is the most vicious and aggravated thing I have ever seen. In September 2024, Moy pleaded guilty to first-degree reckless homicide, chronic child neglect causing bodily harm, and failure to report his son's death. Inside the courtroom, every detail of Jakari's final months came to light.
What is your plea to count 1, first-degree reckless homicide?
I plead guilty.
Jay Robinson took the stand, his voice breaking as he recalled finding his brother's body. He was just a kid. He liked cartoons. He wanted to play soccer. I kept telling myself he'd be okay. But every time I came back, something felt off, and then I was too late.
Not seeing our little brother grow up kind of hurt a little bit, I ain't gonna lie. Like, I wish we could spend more time with him.
Prosecutors displayed crime scene photos that drew audible gasps from jurors. Jakari's tiny frame, covered in maggots, wrapped under a filthy blanket. His bones bent unnaturally from untreated fractures. One investigator testified, "I'll never forget that smell, or that room. This wasn't just a scene. It follows you home at night." Prosecutors emphasized how many times Moy could have sought help. Friends and family had raised concerns. Neighbors noticed warning signs. But instead of intervening, Moye isolated Jakari from the world. The defense offered minimal argument, only vague statements about Moye's mental state after the death of his girlfriend. But prosecutors dismantled the excuse with one simple truth. Overwhelmed parents seek help.
By what I did to my youngest son was not my best at all.
Before sentencing Moy to 47.5 years in prison, the judge, not mincing words, saying Moy betrayed his own family.
They don't starve their children. On August 29, 2024, sentencing was delivered. Judge Laura Crivello addressed Moy directly. This was hatred masquerading as parenting. This was not neglect. This was intentional, sustained cruelty that cost a child his life. The final sentence handed down: 40 years for first-degree reckless homicide, 7.5 years for chronic neglect causing bodily harm, 1.5 years for failure to report the death.
The charges: reckless homicide, chronic neglect of a child, and failure to report the death of a child.
Followed by 25 years of extended supervision. Romuan Moy sat motionless as the judge's words echoed. Outside the courtroom, Jay Robinson and his mother Yolande addressed reporters. Yolande, holding Jakari's blanket close, whispered through tears.
Family of Jakari, otherwise known as Kari, hugging each other a little tighter tonight.
I still hold it at night. I still feel him near me. My baby deserved better. But Jakari's story wouldn't end at sentencing. The Wisconsin legislature fast-tracked the Jakari Act, requiring mandatory wellness checks for homeschooled children, cross-agency reporting between schools, medical providers, and child protective services. Several states followed suit, drafting similar reforms. Legal experts nationwide have pointed to Wisconsin's PI 1206 homeschool law as a dangerous loophole. And Jakari's case now serves as a mandatory case study in child welfare training across the country. Public awareness campaigns quickly adopted one message: see, speak, save. Because silence didn't just fail Jakari, it killed him. This is vaulted crimes, real stories, real consequences.